Lion Air Flight 610 is preparing to depart Jakarta's Soekarno-Hatta International Airport on a routine morning trip to Pangkal Pinang. As passengers settle into their seats and the crew completes final checks, the sleek Boeing 737 MAX 8 begins to taxi to the runway. But what no one knows is that the flight will be anything but routine. Shortly after takeoff, the plane begins an erratic climb, its nose bobbing up and down as if caught in an invisible struggle. Inside the cockpit, alarms blare, and the pilots wrestle with controls that seem to have a mind of their own. The ground is rapidly approaching, and every second counts. Can the crew regain control of the aircraft, or is disaster unavoidable? This is the gripping story of Lion Air Flight 610, a tragedy that would send shockwaves across the aviation industry and change how we view air safety forever. Let's uncover what really happened. Lion Air Flight 610 is a snapshot of modern life, a diverse tapestry of people brought together for a brief moment in time. Among the 189 souls on board, there are business professionals engrossed in their phones, reviewing last-minute details for the meetings awaiting them. Families, some on their first airplane ride, chatter excitedly about their plans. Workers who spend the weekend in Jakarta prepare to reunite with loved ones. Each seat is a microcosm of humanity, every passenger carrying a unique purpose, unaware of the tragic fate that will unite them in history. In one row, a young couple leans close, their hands intertwined as they whisper about their future. Across the aisle, a father points out aircraft taxiing on the tarmac to his wide-eyed child, their faces lit with the thrill of aviation. The terminal windows offer glimpses of planes taking off, each one a promise of adventure or reunion. In another corner, a grandmother clutches a small bag of gifts for her grandchildren, her face serene with anticipation. Every story is poised to take flight. Inside the cabin, the crew moves with seamless precision, their movements honed by countless takeoffs and landings. The lead flight attendant greets passengers with a warm smile that hides the toll of early morning starts. Luggage compartments click shut as bags are stowed. Safety instructions are delivered with the professionalism of routine, though many passengers barely register the words. For some, air travel is mundane. For others, it's exhilarating. For all, it's a bridge to something waiting beyond the runway. Meanwhile, in the cockpit, the atmosphere is calm and focused. The captain, a veteran with over 6,000 hours of flight experience, exudes quiet authority. He is methodical, double-checking the instruments with the practiced ease of someone who has faced and overcome countless challenges in the air. His co-pilot, though younger and with fewer hours logged, approaches the task with equal dedication. They make an efficient team bonded by shared trust and respect for the complex machinery they command. The Boeing 737 MAX 8, the aircraft assigned to this journey, is a technological marvel. It represents a new era of aviation, boasting innovations meant to ensure both safety and efficiency. It's a symbol of progress, a plane designed to perform flawlessly under the most demanding conditions. Yet, even the most advanced systems have their vulnerabilities, especially when human understanding lags behind the technology. As the jet engines roar to life, the aircraft begins taxiing toward the runway. The rhythmic hum of the turbines fills the cabin, mingling with the chatter of passengers and the final announcements from the crew. Outside, Jakarta's early morning light bathes the airport in a golden glow. The city is waking up, unaware that it is about to be the origin point of a tragedy that will reverberate across the globe. The flight is cleared for takeoff. The captain and co-pilot exchange final confirmations, their hands moving confidently over the controls. The runway stretches ahead like a promise, a gateway to the sky. Passengers buckle in, their minds drifting toward their destinations, their plans, their lives ahead. But from the moment the wheels leave the ground, something feels off. The plane climbs, but not steadily. It bucks and dips in a manner that's subtle at first, then increasingly erratic. In the cockpit, alarms begin to sound, a cacophony of warnings that demand immediate attention. Their captain and co-pilot spring into action, their training taking over. Yet, the controls resist them, as if the aircraft itself is fighting against their commands. In the cabin, the passengers sense the shift. Conversations falter. Faces turn toward the windows, then toward each other, searching for reassurance. The flight attendants, trained to maintain composure, exchange concerned glances. This is not routine. This is not normal. The systems meant to guide the plane to make it safer are now at odds with the pilot's instincts. Every second brings the ground closer, and every attempt to regain control seems futile. A crisis is unfolding, and time is running out. For the passengers, crew, and pilots of Lion Air Flight 610, the journey that began with anticipation and purpose is hurtling toward an unthinkable conclusion. This is the story of a flight that should have been ordinary but became a defining moment in aviation history, a tragedy born of human ambition, technological flaws, and the fragile balance between them. As clearance is granted, the engines roar to life, a powerful symphony signaling the start of the journey. The plane taxis to the runway, its sleek form cutting through the morning light. Passengers settle in, some flipping through magazines, others adjusting their seatbelts. A businessman types furiously on his laptop, while a young boy presses his nose against the window, marveling at the sight of the airport fading away as the plane lifts off. But shortly after takeoff, something feels off. In the cockpit, the captain and co-pilot notice the aircraft behaving erratically. Warning lights flash on the control panel, accompanied by loud alarms. The plane's nose begins to dip unnaturally, a movement the pilots did not command. They counteract, pulling the nose back up manually. For a moment, the aircraft seems to stabilize. Then, without warning, the nose dips again, more forcefully this time. The pilots exchange tense words as they try to diagnose the problem. The captain scans the instruments, while the co-pilot reviews the manual, flipping pages in search of a solution. Unbeknownst to the passengers, a battle is unfolding in the cockpit. The pilots are wrestling with the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, MCAS, an automated feature designed to prevent the plane from stalling. This system, however, is receiving incorrect data from a faulty angle of attack sensor. Believing the plane is climbing too steeply, the MCAS repeatedly forces the nose down. The pilots are caught in a deadly cycle. Each time they regain control, the MCAS re-engages, pushing the nose downward again. They fight back, but the system's persistence is relentless. The captain radios air traffic control, reporting a flight control problem. The urgency in his voice is unmistakable, yet in these critical moments, communication is fragmented. Back in the cabin, passengers begin to sense that something is wrong. The plane's erratic movements are impossible to ignore. Overhead compartments rattle and drinks spill as the aircraft lurches downward. Nervous murmurs spread among the passengers. A mother holds her child tightly, whispering reassurances that she doesn't entirely believe. Despite their efforts, the pilots cannot override the MCAS. They are up against a system they were not fully trained to handle. Boeing had introduced the MCAS to compensate for design changes in the 737 MAX 8, but its existence and functionality were not thoroughly explained to airlines or pilots. This lack of information leaves the crew ill-equipped to counteract the system's actions. In the final minutes of the flight, the situation grows increasingly dire. The plane's descent becomes more rapid, its path erratic. Alarms blare incessantly in the cockpit. The captain and co-pilot, their voices strained with desperation, continue to fight against the controls. And then, at 6:33 a.m., just 13 minutes after takeoff, Lion Air Flight 610 crashes into the Java Sea. The impact is devastating, leaving no chance for survival. All 189 lives on board are lost. In the hours following the crash, disbelief turns into heartbreak as the magnitude of the tragedy unfolds. At Pankal Penong's airport, where families eagerly await their loved ones, the bustling terminal grows eerily quiet. Airline officials, visibly shaken, guide them into a private room. The announcement of the crash is met with a collective gasp, followed by anguished cries that pierce the air. Parents collapse into chairs, clutching photographs of their children. A young woman screams, her sobs uncontrollable as she realizes the finality of her loss. The room becomes a cacophony of grief, a heartbreaking scene that mirrors the chaos unfolding at the crash site. Rescue teams, dispatched within minutes of the crash, face an unforgiving sea. The waters are littered with debris, twisted metal fragments, life vests, and personal items that once belonged to the passengers. A single shoe floats aimlessly, a haunting symbol of lives abruptly cut short. Divers descend into the murky depths, navigating jagged wreckage and turbulent currents to recover what they can. The work is painstaking, physically and emotionally draining. Every discovery, a child's toy, a piece of luggage, a body, carries the weight of untold stories and unfulfilled dreams. Among the wreckage, divers retrieve the flight's black boxes, the flight data recorder, and the cockpit voice recorder. These devices, battered but intact, hold the answers everyone desperately seeks. Transported to a secure lab, they become the focal point of the investigation, their cryptic data a window into the final moments of Lion Air Flight 610. As investigators delve into the recordings, a troubling narrative begins to emerge. The maneuvering characteristics augmentation system, MCAS, a feature designed to improve safety by preventing stalls, is identified as a key player in the disaster. Ironically, the very system meant to protect the flight became its undoing. A single angle of attack sensor feeding erroneous data to the MCAS triggered a cascade of fatal events. The system repeatedly forced the aircraft's nose downward, overriding the pilot's desperate attempts to climb. The design flaw is glaring. Why was such a critical system reliant on just one sensor? The question fuels outrage as it becomes clear that this vulnerability could have been mitigated. But the issues run deeper. Boeing, in a bid to streamline operations and minimize pilot retraining costs, had downplayed the MCAS's significance. Pilots worldwide, including those aboard Flight 610, were unaware of its existence and had received no training to handle its malfunction. Public trust in Boeing begins to erode. Families of the victims, now grappling with the unbearable weight of their loss, demand answers. Press conferences become heated battlegrounds where corporate executives face relentless questioning. Why was safety compromised? Why were pilots left unprepared? How could this happen on one of the most advanced planes in the world? The aviation industry as a whole comes under scrutiny. Regulators are criticized for failing to identify the MCAS flaw during certification. Airlines are questioned about their training protocols. The tragedy lays bare a stark reality. In the race to innovate and dominate the market, crucial safeguards had been overlooked. Amid the public outcry, Boeing initiates damage control, pledging to rectify the MCAS design and improve pilot training. But for the grieving families, these promises come too late. Their lives have been irreparably altered. Lawsuits are filed, seeking not just compensation, but accountability. Memorial services are held across Indonesia and beyond, where the victims' stories are honored. Photographs of smiling faces, children in school uniforms, newlyweds, hardworking professionals adorn altars surrounded by candles and flowers. For the investigators, the work is far from over. The data from the black boxes reveals harrowing details of the pilot's struggle to save the plane. The cockpit voice recorder captures their mounting frustration as the MCAS system repeatedly overrides their commands. The final moments are heart-wrenching, a mix of technical jargon, urgent warnings, and the unmistakable tone of despair. Global repercussions follow. Aviation authorities worldwide ground the Boeing 737 MAX fleet, sparking an unprecedented crisis for the aerospace giant. Airlines scrambled to adjust schedules, and passengers expressed newfound apprehension about boarding the model. Governments and industry leaders call for sweeping reforms, vowing to prioritize safety over profit. The crash of Lion Air Flight 610 becomes a watershed moment, a grim reminder of the cost of complacency in aviation. It prompts soul-searching within an industry that prides itself on precision and reliability. For many, it is a stark lesson about the dangers of placing blind faith in technology without adequately preparing for its potential failures. Yet, amid the fallout, stories of resilience and advocacy emerge. Families of the victims channel their grief into campaigns for safer skies, pushing for changes that will protect future passengers. Their voices, though born of tragedy, become a powerful force for accountability and reform. As the months pass, the memory of Lion Air Flight 610 remains vivid, a scar on the collective consciousness of aviation. Each anniversary brings renewed reflections on the lives lost and the lessons learned. The tragedy serves as both a warning and a call to action, reminding the world that safety is not just a standard, it is a responsibility borne by every entity in the chain of flight. The crash is no longer just a story of loss. It is a story of change, of the relentless pursuit of answers, and of the enduring legacy of those who perished. Their voices echo through every policy amendment, every safety measure, and every pilot's briefing. They are a reminder that in aviation, as in life, vigilance must never falter. The crash of Lion Air Flight 610 stands not only as an isolated tragedy, but as a harbinger of a deeper, systemic issue within the aviation industry. Its devastating aftermath reverberated across continents, prompting a global reckoning in one of the world's most safety-conscious sectors. Just 5 months later, a second catastrophic accident occurred. A Boeing 737 MAX 8, operated by Ethiopian Airlines, met a similar fate, killing all 157 aboard. The eerie similarity between the two crashes exposed glaring vulnerabilities and triggered the worldwide grounding of Boeing's 737 MAX fleet, one of the most high-profile setbacks in aviation history. For the families of those aboard Flight 610, the days, weeks, and months following the crash were marked by a grief too profound for words. These were not just passengers. They were parents, children, spouses, friends, and co-workers, each leaving behind a world of connections and unfulfilled dreams. A father traveling for work left behind children who would grow up with only stories of his warmth. A young woman on her first ever flight had hopes for a bright future that would never come to pass. Families grappled with the sudden senseless void their loved ones left behind, mourning not just their absence, but the countless what-ifs and unspoken goodbyes. In Jakarta, a memorial now stands as a solemn tribute to the 189 lives lost. Inscribed with the names of passengers and crew, it is both a monument to human resilience and a reminder of the catastrophic cost of oversight. People come to the sacred space to lay flowers, pin photographs, and leave handwritten notes, tiny fragments of love and grief that together form a tapestry of remembrance. For many, it is a place of solace where they can feel close to those who perished in the waters off Indonesia. But the story of Lion Air Flight 610 does not end with its memorial. It becomes a symbol for change. The tragedy forces the global aviation industry to confront uncomfortable truths about its practices. Investigations reveal that Boeing, in its pursuit of market dominance, made critical missteps in designing and implementing the MCAS system, the software linked to both crashes. The system's reliance on a single angle of attack sensor, a vulnerability that could have been easily mitigated, proved fatal. Adding to the tragedy was Boeing's failure to adequately train pilots on this new system, leaving them ill-prepared to respond to its malfunction. The revelation spurred outrage worldwide. How could such a sophisticated aircraft harbor such a glaring flaw? Why were the pilots not informed about a system that could seize control of their plane? Families of the victims demanded accountability, filing lawsuits and organizing advocacy groups to push for transparency and justice. Governments and regulatory bodies came under fire for their roles in approving the flawed design, prompting a re-examination of aviation safety protocols and certification processes. As the 737 MAX fleet remained grounded, airlines faced operational chaos, passengers expressed unease, and Boeing scrambled to repair both its aircraft and its reputation. The company initiated software updates to address the MCAS issues and rolled out more comprehensive training programs for pilots. But these steps, while necessary, could not erase the lives lost or the pain inflicted. The scars ran deep, both for those directly affected by the crash and for the industry as a whole. For the families, the fight for justice became a way to channel their grief into purpose. They spoke out at press conferences, shared their stories with media outlets, and lobbied for stricter regulations to prevent future tragedies. Their resilience became a testament to the human spirit, transforming personal loss into collective action. Each small victory in their quest for accountability, a policy change, a legal settlement, or a public acknowledgement of wrongdoing, served as a step toward ensuring that no other family would endure what they had. The legacy of Lion Air Flight 610 is a mix of sorrow and lessons hard won. It became a catalyst for reform, reshaping the way aviation professionals approached safety in the face of advancing technology. The crash underscored a fundamental truth. No matter how sophisticated the machines, the human element, both in piloting and oversight, remains irreplaceable. Progress, it reminded the world, must never come at the expense of safety. In the years following the tragedy, aviation authorities and manufacturers worked to implement stricter measures for new aircraft certifications. Airlines incorporated more robust training for their pilots, emphasizing scenarios involving advanced systems like MCAS. These changes, though born of tragedy, saved countless lives by addressing gaps that had been overlooked for too long. For the victims' families and loved ones, however, no reform or restitution could fill the void left by those who perished. They continue to gather on anniversaries, their faces etched with sorrow and determination. The crash is not just a headline or a case study for them, it is a deeply personal wound, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of vigilance. And yet, amidst the grief, there is a glimmer of hope. The story of Lion Air Flight 610, though steeped in tragedy, becomes a beacon of caution and a tribute to those lost. Their names, etched in stone, live on as a reminder to prioritize safety, question assumptions, and never take for granted the immense responsibility of flight. As the aviation industry moves forward, it carries the memory of Flight 610 and its victims as a guiding light. Their stories continue to shape policies, inspire advocacy, and drive innovation. And while the world at large may one day forget the specifics of this tragedy, for those who remember, the lessons will remain eternal. This is the enduring legacy of Lion Air Flight 610, a heartbreaking reminder of the cost of oversight and a testament to the power of remembrance in the face of loss.